Hey, how's it going? Jeff Lerner here, and in this video we are talking about breaking bad habits and creating space for new good habits to emerge in our life. All right, so in this video, we're talking about breaking bad habits so that we can create the space for new good habits and basically be more intentional and directional and proactive about where our life is headed. If this is the first video of mine that you've seen, let me just kind of set the stage. So all of my content, my entire channel is devoted to having an awesome life. My business, I own a company, Entra, that is an awesome life education company. We teach anything related to that, and my channel just gives you tons and tons of videos about strategies, tips, tools, and tactics that I have discovered in my unrelenting quest to have an awesome life. That said, an awesome life, in my experience, must be comprised essentially of habits of awesomeness, right? Your life is really nothing more than the aggregate of your habits and what you do every single day. One of the most powerful books I've ever read, a book that didn't just inform me, but really changed me, changed the direction of my life, was a book called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. We'll make sure there's a link below to that video or to that book. But basically this book and most of the study in general that I've done of habits and behavioral psychology and sort of human performance distills habits into kind of a core framework. And they use different words for it. Sometimes you'll hear it a trigger or a cue. And then you have the routine or the behavior. And then you have the reward or the payoff or, the dope hit, like whatever, right? There's a cue, something that sets up the pattern. Then there's a routine, some sequence of steps that you go through that are somewhat mechanized. They don't require deliberate thought. Think of like backing out of your driveway. You don't have to really think about each step of what you're doing. Turn the wheel here, check the mirror here, push the pedal here. You just kind of go, right? It's always going to be a routine, and there's always going to be some sort of emotional or sensory payoff to the habit. And that's our entire life is really a series of these habits that are occasionally broken up by conscientious or mindful behavior. That's basically your entire life, other than sleeping, which is even its own set of habits. It's really your entire life is being cued to engage in a routine for a reward, or occasionally, maybe a few times a day, I guess more or less depending on your level of conscientiousness, occasionally we will have mindful awareness of what we're actually doing. And that's our entire life. So when you frame it in those terms, it makes sense that whoa, if I can get a hold of my habits, if I can actually be more mindful and more self-aware of what's happening habitually through my life, and then ultimately try to change and re-engineer them, that's it. That's going to change my entire life. And in fact, you look at really successful people, and as they say, success leaves clues. Like when you look at successful people and you decode their life, and what's amazing is, thankfully, really successful people are either write about themselves or are often written about. So there's autobiographies and biographies you can get your hands on to actually study really successful people. And in fact, there's sort of what I call meta-biographical books out there that are not individual studies of individual people, but that are analyses of successful people in general. There's so much information, so much literature, you can really get to the bottom of habits. What are the habits of successful people? And what you find is successful people are always a function of successful habits, or as I say, an awesome life is always a function of awesome habits. If we can upgrade our habits, we can upgrade our life. In fact, the only way to consistently and predictably upgrade our life is to upgrade our habits. That's why I'm shooting this video. That's why I do a self-habit analysis on a regular basis to say, hey, what do I need to tweak? It's not, trying to go through life and be smart enough or quick enough or clever enough or energetic enough or aware enough to always be making the right decision in the moment is exhausting. There's a principle called ego depletion that I won't go into great depth on in this video, but in psychology, ego depletion is basically the concept that your ego gets tired. And when we say ego, we don't mean the haughty, I'm a badass ego like we think of in traditional sense. In psychology, your ego is basically the moderator between your your kind of basic underlying instincts that may or may not actually be in your own best interest, and your which is called your id, and your super ego, which is your idealized, most moral and ethical self, your value-based self. And then your ego is like the moderator who's constantly trying to get your id to stay in check and your super ego to do a little more. But your ego gets tired. That tug of war is exhausting. That's why you're more likely to make bad decisions, whether it's to slip on food or to not get work done or to miss a deadline or to snap at your spouse or to snap at your kids. You're more likely to do those things later in the day, not because you're physically tired, but because your ego is depleted. The moderator in your mind is depleted between your sort of your lesser and your better self. That's why we can't typically fix our life through willpower. We can't typically fix our life by saying, I resolve to make better decisions day in and day out and do better. We have to understand the habits that underlie most of our behavior. And it's kind of like doing surgery. You go in and you fix something at a granular level and then give it time to heal and to blossom and to flower in your life. The habits are the little micro tears that you can go in and fix that can grow into healthier tissue in your life. So let's talk about how to actually fix or break bad habits. And again, I've already given the clue, and that is mindfulness or conscientiousness. There's a really good TED Talk by a guy named Judson Brewer. It's only even like half the length of a normal TED Talk. TED Talks usually cap at 18 minutes. This one's like 9 or 10 minutes. And in it, he's basically a mindfulness, or he's a psychologist, and he studies behavior and habits and does a lot of work with mindfulness and self-awareness. And what he does is he takes people through things like he'll bring in a room full of smokers and he'll say, hey, smoke. We're not here to stop you from doing what you want to do. We're here to give you a better perspective on what it is that you're doing. And so he'll have people smoke and say, okay, now just describe to me what's going on. Feel free to smoke if that's your gig, but tell me about it. Become highly self-aware inside of your habit loop, right? And they'll describe the sensations of smoking, and they'll describe it in pretty nasty terms because, fundamentally it's a pretty nasty habit. You're burning stuff, chemicals and plants, and breathing it into your lungs, and it creates a bad smell, and it creates physical decay, and it creates a sensation. But actually the sensation isn't even really one that's that pleasurable. It's the loop, it's the habit that's been created that actually creates the neurological reward. It's not the actual cigarette. And so the more mindful he gets people in the context of their habit, and the more they describe it, the more empowered they sort of get to say, hey, I don't actually want to be doing this. Not I'm physically trying to stop myself from doing it, because then there's all this data that supports the reactivity of when somebody is either trying to stop themselves or is being stopped from doing something. It actually makes them want to do it more. Anyway, so mindfulness is really the key. It's to become as self-aware as possible. In Buddhism talks a lot about this, and I do think it's important to make a disclaimer. I'm not a Buddhist. I actually read a pretty interesting article the other day that was talking about how a lot of people conflate Buddhism and meditation and mindfulness meditation as a therapeutic tool, and they kind of mix the two, and that the point of Buddhism isn't mental health, and that the point of therapy isn't enlightenment. And it's an important distinction to make, because a lot of people, I think they resist mindfulness and meditative approaches because they view it as almost like a religious observance, and they go, oh, that's not me, it feels weird or woo-woo or something. Or they have a certain attitude that's informed by Eastern philosophical or religious practice that actually steers them only in that direction when it comes to the very practical mental health benefits of mindfulness meditation. And there's what I call mindfulness meditation, and again, it's not the technical term, but mind emptiness meditation. There really are two types of meditation. One is total self-awareness, and the other is to completely minimize conscious awareness and in terms of distractive focus. But this isn't a video about the different types of meditation, but I guess it's, anybody who's like a meditation guru that's watching this is going to go, oh, he's painting all meditation with the same brush. So I make that distinction because it's a valid one. But anyway, so, whatever your feelings are about, and maybe don't even use the term meditation, just focus on the term mindfulness. It's about heightened self-awareness in the moment. And it is actually the key to breaking habits, breaking bad habits. So this is how I like to look at our mind. And again, you know, I've pretty intentionally and purposefully tried to become a student of, I guess for lack of better terms, practical psychology. Like, I'm not a clinician, I'm not an academic, I don't have a degree, but I'm a human. And we all live with the same brain, and frankly, we all have access to the same information and literature. I mean, I guess there's a few medical journals you technically have to be subscribed to, but I've started from the premise of like, the better I can understand myself, the better I think I can make my life, because I know that my life is just an outgrowth of all the things that I do, and the things that I do are an outgrowth of the things that I think and the things that I feel. And I'm trying to avoid to go down too many psychological rabbit holes here, or educational rabbit holes, but Adlerian psychology, or probably Albert Ellis, I would say Albert Ellis, Google Ellis paradigm, or Google rational emotive behavior therapy, Google cognitive behavior therapy, and just go down these rabbit holes. Like those are 3 rabbit holes: Ellis paradigm, cognitive behavioral therapy, and rational emotive behavioral therapy, that will bear massive amounts of fruit for the rest of your life, or at the very least, finish this video. So here's how I understand the human mind. I had a hard time in high school, so I like to relate things to high school. So basically you have the prefrontal cortex, right? Which is the newest, it's the youngest part of the human brain. It was the last part of the brain to evolve, and the brain which sort of most uniquely sets us apart as human in terms of our cognition. The prefrontal cortex is basically like a nerdy kid who gets bullied a lot in school. Like it's actually the smart kid. It's actually the conscientious kid. It's actually the empathetic kid. It's the kid that like gets it, but it gets bullied, so it doesn't get listened to, right? And the bully is your id, or your lizard brain, or your brain stem, or whatever you want to call it, which is like the primal, instinctive, I must eat, I must kill, I must fornicate, I must dominate to survive. It's like your Darwinian, survival instinct part of your brain, right? And that's like the bully who goes around like a big cretin just beating up on the nerds, right? And the nerds are like, but I'm smarter and I know better. And the bully's like, I don't care because I'm scared and I need you to feel small. And then in the middle, you have like the emo kids, right? That are like, man, can't we just all get along? And I kind of keep to myself because nerds are boring and bullies are mean. So I kind of just do my own thing, but I feel deeply, and like I just want peace and love and happiness. And like the emo kids are actually the ones that, like, if you take the time to get to know them, they have like real depth a lot of times, right? And they kind of put up like this superficial front to avoid having to connect, because connection is painful. When you're vulnerable and sensitive and emotionally intelligent, connection with either a bully or a nerd can be kind of painful and awkward, right? What we want to do in our own life is like empower the emo kid, empower the part of us that feels deeply, that's hyper aware, hypersensitive, and in tune and in touch with how we feel. That's when we talk about the power of vulnerability. Brene Brown has a great TED Talk called The Power of Vulnerability. I think in simplified terms, we can say what she's saying is like, empower the emo kid in your life. Boost him up, him or her up, so that he's not scared of the bullies and he's not bored by the nerds. That's honestly how you break bad habits, is you get so conditioned to feeling, to lots and lots of feeling, that whenever you engage in your habit loops, you feel the feelings. You do it with awareness. And what you'll realize is, I don't actually like the way this makes me feel. This cheesecake, yeah, there's some like stimulation on my taste buds, but all the shame, all the guilt, all the baggage that I carry with it, I don't like the way this is making me feel. And because I'm allowing myself to feel the feelings, because I've empowered the emo kid in the high school of my life, I'm not going to be bullied anymore, and I'm not going to think nerds are so boring and uncool anymore. I'll actually listen to the wisdom that's already in my own mind, and that happens when you let yourself feel all the feelings. It's crazy that really the key to life and the key to success and the key to an awesome life is to just feel all the feelings, because then you'll naturally do the things that lead you in the long-term direction you want to go, because it feels good to do them. Anyway, I'm about out of time. I hope that's helpful for you. Let's break some bad habits. Let's make it an awesome life. If you're into this kind of stuff, I would ask you to subscribe to my channel. Click the button below. Make sure when you do that you click the little bell that allows you to be notified as new videos come out, because I am committed to you having an awesome life, and I'm going to keep bringing you content in that direction. But you got to get the videos. to get it. So thanks for your time. I'll see you on the next video.